Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Cardos, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Most of us have so much going on, and we don't know if we can keep up without working ourselves to exhaustion. I'm excited to present our speakers, Jay Baer and Aya Fawzi, to talk about expanding your content marketing without exhaustion. But before I hand it over to them, a few housekeeping items to be aware of. The session will be recorded. If you have any questions, please type them into the box on the left, and we will get to them at the end of the webinar. If you love tweeting, join us in using the hashtag CapToraWebinar. And most importantly, have fun. Now I would like to introduce Jay Baer, the most retweeted person in the world among digital marketers, president of Convince and Convert, and New York Times best-selling author. Jay brings great advice for digital marketers. I would also like to introduce to you Aya Fawzi, marketing manager at Captora, leading the marketing team and being the only full-time marketer for a fast-growing company. She can definitely speak to doing more with less. So without further ado, let's kick it off. Aya, over to you.
Thanks, Kristen. So before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Captora and give everyone a brief background of what we do. So Captora turned 3 last March, and we are backed up by Bain Capital Ventures and NEA, and we currently have about 70 plus customers. So the story around Captora and why it was created, our CEO, Paul Albright, created it because he saw this gap in top-of-funnel marketing. So in his previous gig at Marketo as a CRO, he heard customers and prospects say, you know, we understand middle of the funnel, we understand nurturing, but we need more leads. We need help with top-of-funnel marketing. So Captora was created as this top-of-funnel platform to help solve for anonymous visitors and aligning your buyer intent and demand intent, being content aware, and allowing marketers to work across channels, so your organic, your SEM, content, and social to really drive lead generation. So that is about Captora, but let's kick it off and talk about expanding your content marketing. So over to you, Jay.
Thanks so much, Aya. I love Captora, big fan. Here's how much of a fan I am. I am actually an investor in Captora. So I've got my money behind this company. If you haven't done a demo of Captora, you should do one. We're going to show you a couple of client case studies later in the presentation today, and it will ensure that you want to learn more about their technology because nobody does it the way they do it. I think as marketers, we all have a problem. Recent research from Workfront found that 60% of marketers have delayed going to the bathroom in order to meet a work deadline. What that means is that we are too busy to pee. At the same time, 69% of B2C content marketers will make more content than ever this year, according to the Content Marketing Institute, and 70% of B2B marketers will do the same. All of us are trying to do more marketing across more channels for more purposes with more measurement, and this is, frankly, unsustainable. Because at some point in your organization, and maybe this has already happened to you, but at some point your boss or your boss's boss or your boss's boss's boss, or maybe if you're self-employed, you will come to your senses and you will say, hey, no more people. We can't put additional resources against this. We cannot grow the marketing team, the content marketing team, the digital marketing team forever. There will be a line in the sand, and at that point, we have to figure out what to do next. What to do next, frankly, is this. Content marketing success in this hyper-busy environment is about, and if it's not about this for you today, it will be, it's about getting more juice with every squeeze. We've been getting by for the last few years just by buying more oranges. Just, hey, let's just get more oranges and more oranges and more oranges, but we're going to have to get to the point where we're getting more juice for every squeeze. And that, my friends, is what we're going to talk about today in this exciting webinar with me, Aya Captora. We're going to tell you 7 ways to create more content, more marketing without exhaustion. We're going to give you 7 ways to actually do more marketing without restricting your own ability We're going to talk about atomization, about repurposing, about transcription, about semi-automation, competitor analysis, customer content, and contributors. Take each of these. Sequence. First, let's talk about content atomization. We use this tactic a lot in my organization, as I'll show you in a moment. The concept of content atomization is when you take a big content theme, your quarterly big tentpole idea or your annual area of emphasis, and then you take that big idea and you make many different smaller executions of that same theme. You take a big idea and you turn it into lots of smaller executions. There's two types of content, and this is how we describe it in our organization at Convince and Convert. There's two types of content. There is big content, which we call bricks, and it's called bricks because it has heft and permanence and production value like a brick would be. The intention of a brick piece of content is it's something that would be saved or shared, print out and give to your boss, for example. You won't throw it away. The same way you don't throw actual bricks away. Like there's a whole stack of bricks outside my office at home, my home office, that came with the house, and I have no reason to have those bricks there, but they're just there because you can't like put bricks in the trash, right? It's just weird. Same thing is true with brick content. The other type of content are feathers, and feathers are the kind of the flotsam and jetsam of content marketing, the things that we create every day, the things that we consume every hour, every minute, every second. It's things like a single blog post, a guest appearance on a podcast, a Facebook post, an Instagram photo, etc. So what we try to do at Convince and Convert is advise people to live by the 8-to-1 rule, which means for every brick that you have, turn it into 8 or more feathers. For every big idea you have, turn it into 8 or more smaller idea executions. Just one example, when I wrote my last book, Utility, I took the book and had somebody help me do this, reworked the book into 40 different guest blog posts. And I took those guest blog posts and I gave them to digital marketing blogs and bloggers all across the world, in this case, the fantastic Social Fresh blog. And I said, hey, you guys are always looking for good content. Here is a blog post that's ready to go, signed, sealed, delivered. Please run it, somewhere near when the book comes out. Boom. Took one big idea, which was the book, turned it into 40 smaller executions. The second way to expand your content marketing without working yourself to exhaustion is a related theme, which we call repurposing. Whereas in atomization, you take a big idea and you make it small. In repurposing, you take one execution and then change the style of the execution. So you're not making it bigger or smaller, you're just changing how it's actually executed. So it's almost like changing shirts or changing sport coats or changing shoes. The thing to remember about repurposing is that the thing is not the thing. It's just the first. And what I mean by that is, as marketers, we are often guilty of saying, we've got a video that blank, blank, blank. We have an infographic that blank, blank, blank. We have a blog post that blank, blank. And that's not the right way to think about it. What you actually have is a series of content executions, the first execution of which happened to be a video, an infographic, blog post, or otherwise. See, all marketers, including me, tell ourselves the same lie. We tell ourselves this lie. We say that our customers are just too busy to fully interact and engage with our content. They're just too busy. There's too much going on. They have too many other things that compete for attention and time. And that's simply not true. Because when somebody says that they are too busy, that's actually a code word. What it really means when somebody says they're too busy is that what you have given them is not relevant enough. Because, my friends, it's remarkable that when you give somebody the exact content they want, in the exact format that they want it, the time they need to consume it is magically created. It comes out of thin air. So what I like to say is that relevancy magically creates time. So the more ways that you can execute on a particular content theme, not only is it more time efficient for you, but it's more likely that it will be relevant to some of your customers and some of your prospects, because some people like to listen, and some people like to watch, and some people like to read. And if you're a good marketer, you need to give different segments of your audience the content that you have in each of those different disciplines. For example, we do a lot of repurposing on the Convince and Convert blog. So on the left-hand side, you see the original blog post, The Rise of Least Social Community, which I wrote a few months ago. We took that blog post, we turned it into a podcast. We have professional voice actors who read our three best blog posts every week and turn them into podcast episodes. So we take a blog post and turn it into audio, and then we take our best blog posts and turn them into SlideShare presentations. So now we have the same idea, in fact, almost exactly the same content, repurposed into 3 different types of content that will appeal to different people based on their own preferences and what they believe is most relevant to them. Isn't that so much easier than creating 3 different things, creating one thing, and repurposing it in 3 different ways? From a functional perspective, the third thing I want to talk to you about in terms of creating content without working yourself to exhaustion is transcription. Big fan of transcription. In fact, right before the webinar started, I just got my monthly transcription invoice, which is now getting to be a significant expenditure, but it's because we use it so often. And so think about this, okay? I believe that you should, wherever possible, when you're creating content and you're thinking about repurposing, or you're thinking about atomization, or any of the things that we're going to tell you today, if at all possible, try to start with video. Try to set it up so video is the first way that you create everything. Because if you have video, you also have audio. You just have to take the audio file out. If you have audio, or video for that matter, you also have text, because you can use a transcription service to word for word take the video or the audio, turn it into text, clean it up a little bit, and now you have a blog post, SlideShare presentation, etc. It doesn't work as well when you go the other direction, right? If you start with a blog post and you have to turn it into a video, well, then you actually have to turn it into a video. You have to sit down and do it. You can't just press a button and say, make me a transcription. Before transcription services, assume $1 or $2 per minute, 72 hours or so, 3 days, for really terrific transcription services. We use speechpad.com in my organization. There's several others out there. An important thing to note, though, is that when you do transcription like this, the best way to do it is to then transcribe it and change it. So you take the video, you transcribe it so you now have text, so you now have sort of a blog post in theory, but that blog post could be in lots of different places. Just make sure, and I'll talk about this a little bit when we get into some of the content production things that Captora can do, just make sure that you change that blog post a little bit. You don't want to have the exact same blog post word for word in multiple places for Google duplicate content reasons. So the way we do this in practice, or the way we have in practice in my organization, some of you may have seen my J Today video series. I did it for a little over a year, 150, 200 episodes, something like that, and I would do a 3-minute video almost every day. 3-minute video wherever I happen to be, in a hotel, at a conference, at home, etc., about social media and content marketing, life, business. So I would take the video, put the video on YouTube, but then we would do the transcription service to get the word for word, and we would put it in multiple places. So we would create a blog post on our blog, then we would change that content. We'd change the headline, a little bit of the body copy, and turn it into a blog post on Medium. Then we would change it again, a little different headline, a little different body copy, and put it on LinkedIn. So now you have a 3-minute video, which becomes not only a 3-minute video, of course, but 3 or more different blog posts. Now, what we want to tell you about next is semi-automation, is actually using the power of robots and software to create even more content without working yourself to exhaustion. And Aya is going to talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Jay. Great content. I think in our organization, at least in me being just a one-person full-time at Captora, I think I definitely do use this repurposing. Haven't done transcribing or the automation, but definitely going to get into that. So semi-automation, I feel very strongly about this, though a little bit about me using Captora. I actually used it at ServiceMax, where I was an intern part-time, creating these campaigns and using the power of robots. And we were able to see tremendous results that I had to just get my foot into Captora and learn more about their software. So semi-automation, I think, sometimes when marketers hear this, they get this negative connotation where it's, spam or duplicate content. But I think if you understand SEO best practices and you leverage a technology that you trust and that, they're not going to screw you over by making sure you're creating duplicate content, then I think you're in good hands. So when I'm talking about semi-automation, I'm not referring to your content assets like Jay talked about, with your ebooks or blogs or white papers. I'm referring to creating campaigns for lead generation. So think of this as you're creating content to tease someone to download your asset, so a trailer to a movie. So what Captora does is it crawls all your content, your competitors' content, the web, and it takes existing content and it organizes it into themes and sub-themes. So the themes are usually like content marketing, digital marketing, and then the sub-themes would be longer tail keywords that are really specific to what people are searching for. So for example, if my theme is content marketing, a sub-theme underneath that would be what is content marketing or how to scale your content marketing efforts. So once you have these sub-themes or long tail keywords, you can automatically generate hundreds of campaigns, and it intelligently auto-generates that content. So now one person can be responsible for creating hundreds of campaigns, so that's 3 times the efficiency of doing it manually. So an example of what a campaign is in Captora, and this is a Captora page that I created using our software, and it works with SEO best practices because it takes your title, which is that long tail keyword. So the sub-theme underneath this is meaning of modern marketing. So Captora automatically takes your template. It helps you create a CTA, and all you need to do is go in there, write 3 paragraphs, 250 words, trailer, tease someone to download our video, right, which is what the CTA is right here. So technically what you're doing is taking existing content and switching it around like Jay just described, adding a few words here and there. We have a spam meter to say, don't post this. It has duplicate content. You have similar content on the web. Google's going to ding you. So let's change it. And it tells you what words you can change in order to help you create content at scale. So right now at Captora, I've been here for 1.5 years, and I've done 1,400 of these pages. Different keyword groups, different themes, different sub-themes, and it really helps with, getting these anonymous buyers and educating them. So that's semi-automation. We started doing this cool thing with our customers and internally where we have something called a launch-a-thon. So we get everyone in the company, cross departments, CEOs, co-founders, engineers, people that don't know SEO to write these pages, and it works. So last Thursday we had 2 hours, brought in pizza and beer, put on some music, started jamming away and writing these pages, and we created 180 campaigns in 2 hours. So, going to the engineers and telling them to write about marketing can seem kind of crazy because they don't know what the problems are. But once you're in there and you can kind of just Google, you have your existing content coming to you, you just need to rephrase a few things, you can really scale it. So another tip is competitor analysis. I think it's so important to be able to understand what your competitors are doing on the web and what content they have, and not only for you to figure out, let's do a competitive attack, but how can we be thought leaders? What content do I have that my competitors don't have? So another part of the Captora platform is this competitor analysis aspect. So the themes that I talked about earlier, this is a customer example, so ServiceMax when I used to work there. All these demand families are themes in the industry, right? So field service, works order, service scheduling, and it tells you how you rank in terms of content reach against your competitors. So you can see by content type, by video, by web pages, by tweets, by AdWords, where you have content and where your competitors have content, and see where you have gaps and where you have opportunities. So I think the cool thing that Captora enables you to do is to take action. So it's not just showing you, here are the gaps, now go figure out what you're going to do. It helps you say, okay, let's create a campaign around field service, and let's stay thought leaders in the space. Or maybe, our team wants to write more content about service management because we're ranked 6th and we don't have enough content, but our competitors have so much to do in that space. So this is really a place where every quarter or every month the team can go in here and figure out what to prioritize. Do we want to, create content and ebooks and vlogs around what theme do we want to focus on? Where do we have this opportunity to go in and create more content without sitting there and guessing? And so I think one of the best quotes I've seen from a customer about the power of Captora is it's closing the gap of the disconnect between how they describe their solution and how buyers are searching for them. So, I can say Captora is a content marketing platform or a digital marketing platform, but someone might be searching more specific things that I don't think Captora does, but we can help them solve that pain point. So it's really interesting to be able to say, okay, this is what's happening in the industry. This is where I'm seeing content. This is the gaps and opportunities I have. Let's just start creating content. Let's see what sticks with our customers, what sticks with buyers out there, and then be able to create ebooks out of that, blog posts, and using all the tools that Jay mentioned earlier, you can start creating tons of content without guessing, and there's no guesswork. You know what works and what doesn't.
Awesome,
so
absolutely. I couldn't agree more that if we're talking about being too busy, certainly some of the things we've talked about allows you to create more content with less effort, whether it's repurposing or using some of the Captora campaign features. But if you are more strategic about the content you create because you understand more about what your competitors are doing or trying to do, that should allow you to waste less time creating content that is not effective, and you end up at the same place. So whether you're saving time or making more content with less effort, you end up in the same place, which is, frankly, the ability to compete, which is good news for everybody. One of the other things we want to tell you about in terms of saving time and doing all this more efficiently is the use of customer content. See, every customer who contacts you in every potential channel, that is actually content, or it could be content. So if somebody calls you, you could transcribe that telephone call, and now you have content. Every time a customer emails you, that's potentially content. Every time somebody leaves a comment or a review on your software, whether it's B2B or B2C, that is potentially content. Customer service is actually the petri dish of content marketing. Customer service, we talk so much about user-generated content. How do we get more user-generated content? Recognize that the customer service department has nothing but user-generated content. We just don't think of it that way, and perhaps we should. One of my favorite examples of a company doing this really well is Western River Expeditions, and they do kind of high-end, glamorous outdoors activities. So, go down the Snake River and, mountain bike down a volcano and that kind of stuff. Great organization. They've been around for a long time. They really have it buttoned up. They do this amazing program where when you finish a trip with Western River, you instantly get an email from them. But, hey, I really hope you loved your trip down the Snake River. What we would love is for you to upload your very favorite picture. And we're trying to create like a gallery. Upload your favorite picture and just leave us a couple sentences or whatever you like about what you thought of the trip. And here's a link to do that. Click a link. You go to a page, it's essentially a form on their website, and you upload your favorite photo, and then you talk about your trip, a couple sentences, a couple paragraphs, whatever you like. You press the button. It goes to the Western River team, who can then take a quick look at it, press one button, and say go, and it turns it into a blog post on their site, as you see here on the slide in front of you. That is actually a customer-written review, photo, blog post, trip description. Then what Western River does in many cases is they say, wow, that's a good one. They press another button, and another email goes back to you and says, Aya, we loved your photo and your review so much that we published it to the blog. Check it out. And then you click and go to the blog post. Then you will social share it there to your friends. And then they take the very best ones and they put it on the Western River Facebook page. Then they email you again and say, guess what? Yours was so good, we decided to share it with our Facebook community. It's all automated. It makes perfect sense. It creates tons of content. They now have more than 1,200 of these guest reviews on their website. Talk about creating content. 1,200 guest reviews, each of which is optimized for search engine success. Some of them go on Facebook, etc. And these kind of reviews from real people make a big difference. 80% of Americans trust ratings and reviews online as much as they trust recommendations from friends and family members, even though in most cases those reviews were written by perfect strangers. We seem to have all come to the conclusion that if it's on the internet, it must be true. Another way to get more content with less effort is through content contributors. Huge opportunity for B2B and very untapped in most cases, I find. The idea here is that psychologically you've got to get yourself to embrace the notion that you don't have to create all the content. You just have to make sure the content is good and that it's strategically sound in achieving your overall business objectives. You don't have to write every word. You don't have to take every photo. Customers, partners, employees, they're all potentially content creators. And every time you bring somebody else into your team, say, we want you to create content, that individual or that company or whatever the circumstance may be brings with them not only content creation opportunities, but also an audience. Right? They have fans, followers, loved ones, customers, partners of their own. So now you've got your existing group, plus they add to it, and now your audience is bigger. Here's an example from Captora doing this on the Captora blog, where they actually recruited some outside contributors to write posts on the blog. Aya, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, there's so many people out there that want to get their name known, and people don't know their blog, they don't know their companies. So really leveraging your network of partners, of customers, of thought leaders in your space and just sending them a quick email like, hey, I really like this blog that you wrote a while ago on your website about blah, blah, blah. Do you think you can write something for Captora? And, you link back to their site, you help them be able to expand their reach, for people to understand who they are. You share that, you tag them in your tweet, then they get more traffic to their site. I think it's just a win-win on both parts. So that's something I started doing recently, is really leveraging that network that we have that we didn't do before. It was getting really tiring to, create blog posts every day, and you're just like, I don't know what content to create next. So having these thought leaders and partners and people that you partner with, I think is going to go a long way, and it helps you not work yourself to exhaustion.
And it absolutely can. I know this firsthand. You have to get past the ego of thinking, well, I work for this company, so only I create content for this organization. This is a chart that I put together for this webinar. It shows the number of blog posts that we publish every month on our blog, Convince and Convert. The middle there shows how many of those posts were written by me personally, Jay Baer. So you can see circa 2010, 2011, we did 12 blog posts a month, and I wrote all of them. We did 30 to 40,000 visits a month. Then I said, hey, you know what? I don't need to write all this content. I just need to make sure the content is consistently good. We built out an editorial team. I started to work with lots and lots of smart contributors, people like Aya. So now we do 32 posts per month, but I personally only write 4 of them. And you can see traffic is now 250,000 sessions per month. It's actually a little bit higher than that. So there's 2 ways to interpret this. A, using contributors allows you to create a lot more content with less effort. And B, the less I write, the more popular my blog is, which is not exactly the trend I was looking for, but the numbers do not lie. It's a good question here from Ed, who says, who's in charge of quality control when allowing your team to create content? This is where I think you really need an editorial function. Aya does that now for Captora. At the scale that we publish at Convince to Convert, we actually have a managing editor who is in charge of coordinating all guest contributions, making sure that they understand what we're trying to achieve from an editorial standpoint, making sure that the content is as consistent as it can be, given the fact that we have probably over 100 writers per year. But you have to have, at scale, somebody who is really thinking that way every day, because you're exactly right, Ed, or at least how I interpret your question, is that more content more efficiently only makes sense if that content is of a sufficient quality to actually accomplish your business objectives. Get people to click that link, to get people to pursue that call to action, to get people to become leads and customers and all the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah, and to add to that, Jay, I think, with Captora, we're a smaller organization, so we reach out to these people, one or two people at a time, and once we get a response, it's really easy to be able to go over that content. I think it's easier to edit something that's there than to come up with an idea from scratch. So like you said, I'm the one going in here and editing the content that we get from guest contributors, but for the most part, it's not that much editing, and we've talked about what the vision is for this blog post and what we'd want it to be, and it works out perfectly. So it just depends on that volume, but I think it's easier to edit than to start doing something by yourself from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So these are the 7 ways that we talked to you about today, ways that you can create more content without working yourself to exhaustion. We talked about atomization. We talked about repurposing. We talked about using transcription. We talked about semi-automation, the kind of things that Captora can help you with. We talked about competitor analysis, which is the other side of the Captora tool. We talked about using customers to create content the way that Western River Expeditions does. And we talked about using contributors the way we do and Aya does as well at Captora. All of those can be used to create more content in less time. Hope that you will pursue one or more of them. We have a little bit of time remaining here for questions. You can go ahead and put those into the questions tab down there at the bottom where you see chat, or you can put it in the chat. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to either way. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about today's webinar, about Captora, about what we do at Convince to Convert, about tequila, which is my area of expertise. Whatever you need, we are here for you. Let me ask you a question about the competitor analysis tool that you talked about. How long does it take to run that? Like, can you look back? If I say, hey, I want to know what competitors are doing, can you look backwards and say, here's what they've done in the last 6 months, or does it only work forwards?
Yeah, so it actually gives you everything since they started. So you can see, from 3 years ago, blog posts that they have until what it is currently. So it recrawls every few days.
That's awesome. That's really amazing. Even though I know it's not necessarily your key market at Captora, it seems to me like that would be a really good tool for public relations firms who are always trying to sort of say what has happened historically in this category from a messaging standpoint.
Yep, exactly.
A question here from Caitlin, who wants to know more about the semi-automation stuff. A couple more examples on that. Do you want to take one or two of those?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more to it. So what these semi-automation examples that I was showing, it's pretty much a campaign or a landing page. So you have a gated asset behind the form, and what you're basically doing is creating content to tease someone to download that asset. So with the Captora platform, the semi-automation really comes in where we tell you what campaign you should be creating, because this is a pain point that your buyer is facing in the industry. And then it takes your existing template from your website, it takes the content asset that you want to gate behind it, and all you're really doing is creating that trailer content to let someone download the content asset itself. So think of it as writing a mini blog post. So if you have a new ebook, you write a blog post to tell people to download it, but doing that by using pain points that your buyers are searching for. So Captora is identifying those campaigns that you should go after. And I mean, we're happy to do a demo if you want to reach out to me, and we can go into more customer examples, and I can show you how, people can find your campaigns online for lead capture.
Great, thanks. Question from Ed about how do you feel about repurposing competitors' content? If you see a blog post that could be tweaked to work better. I wouldn't necessarily take a competitor's blog post and tweak it for your own, because that could be interpreted perhaps negatively. But I would be perfectly okay with a competitor writing a blog post and then you writing a competing blog post that cites theirs and links to theirs and say, these guys said this, we agree with this part, we disagree with that part, and here's why. That happens in marketing, all forms of business all the time. I just wouldn't take their copy and tweak it necessarily. That would be this could create more trouble than it's worth. Rachel asks, what are the best practices for becoming a contributor on other sites? I'll take this one because I get probably 15 to 20 emails a week from people asking to write on Convince and Convert, and I've got a pretty good history on what works better. And I'll tell you the simple truth, which is build a relationship before you need it. In the classic social media trust agents from Chris Brogan and Julian Smith, they have a chapter in that book that was incredibly important when it was released circa 2009, even more important today, I think, which is the idea of being there before the sale. That you develop a relationship before you need the relationship, so that when you need the relationship, it's actually easier to connect. And so I can tell you without question that the people who end up writing on Convince and Convert are, not in every case, but certainly in the majority of cases, people that we already know. And we know them because they've commented on our posts for a long time, or they interact with us on Twitter, or we've met them at events, or we just know them in some other context, or they have reviewed our podcast or something else. So when somebody emails you, you're like, oh, I know that person. It's not so much about is this person a better writer, a worse writer. It doesn't matter. We can get you to be a sufficiently good writer. It's do we know you? I mean, do stand out from amongst the crowd? And so, Rachel, if there's sites that you're interested in becoming a contributor for, find out those sites, figure out who works at those organizations, and build relationships with them online and offline, ideally, so that when you make the ask, when you say, I would like to do this, like, oh, Rachel, sure, we know her, well, at least going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's see. Katie asks, how many campaigns in Captora do you typically make for each piece of content? That's a good question. You might phrase it a little differently, Aya, but that's a good question on how that works.
Yeah, so we don't create campaigns for a piece of content per se, but what it is, so think of these campaigns as giving an answer to someone that has a question. So your buyers are searching for a phrase on the web to get more information and to educate themselves before making a purchase decision. So you're really just answering their question and telling them how your company can help solve for this pain point. So we primarily with the content, how it comes in is, okay, we know our best performing content pieces. So we have, 2 ebooks and a video. And so we take that and gate it behind each campaign that it makes sense for. So if my theme is around content marketing, then I'm going to use our content marketing ebook as the asset. And for that piece of content, I can have over 200 campaigns about it. I've seen content marketing teams have a new ebook or a white paper that they want to promote, and they'll work backwards and come up with hundreds of campaigns or 20 campaigns to promote that piece of content. So it's a really good way because Google's always indexing that content, and it'll climb the ranks, and then you'll get all these new visitors to come reach your content.
Great, thanks. That was an excellent. I think that's probably it for now. Folks who are interested in a demo of Captora, we'll make sure to follow up with you with an email after the webinar. We'll send you a link to the recording and another link to get a demo if you're interested. If you need anything else, let me know, or Aya, and we'll get you squared away. Any closing words?
No, I think thank you so much, Jay. This webinar was great, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it and took away some new things.
Thanks,
Don't miss the
everybody. We
bathroom
appreciate
trip.
you tuning in. Yep, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Good.
Thank you. Please stand by.